Okay, welcome back to the podcast. We are delighted to have Jasmine Martirossian on the podcast today. Jasmine is a senior executive who has worked within the TIC industry for a number of years for companies such as CSA Group, Intertech, and at most recent TUV SUD, primarily within the marketing function, but actually is now the Chief Marketing and Chief People Officer at Mercury, a global logistics company. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, Thomas, for having me on your podcast. Delighted to be here.
Fantastic. So we will kick off. The first punchy question: why do you love the TIC industry?
Well, first of all, it's a phenomenal industry. Very few people know about TIC, testing, inspection, certification. And now it's very often also called ATIC, with assurance up front. It's an insanely complex industry. Nobody grows up dreaming of going into the TIC industry. Most people graduate from university not knowing it even exists. But it's a phenomenal, multifaceted, complex industry that seemingly operates behind the scenes, but has a great mission and purpose because it makes people's lives safer. Imagine everything that we consume and deal with, even the laptops that we're using to do this podcast now, telephones, food we eat, clothing we wear, buildings we're in, has to be tested and certified. It facilitates global trade. It's critical now for sustainability. It's everywhere. It has regulatory powers. It has science behind it. It has complexities. It drives global business. And it's a truly global industry. So if you love working with complexity and simplifying it, if you love working with different cultures, if you love being in a truly kind of global multinational environment, TIC industry is unbelievable.
100%. Absolutely. So on your personal side, Jasmine, can you just discuss maybe some risks that you've taken and how this has potentially shaped your professional trajectory, and a bit of background there as well?
Oh, hugely. The TIC, I would not be in my current role with Mercury had I not worked with the TIC industry. And frankly, logistics is not an industry I'd worked at previously, but the TIC industry really prepared me well for that. Mercury is a global logistics company that specializes in ultra complex shipping as well of live time and temperature sensitive products. And there's a life behind everything we ship. So it has an impact on outcomes. But TIC industry can prepare you for that. First of all, TIC industry, and in terms of the career risks I've taken, for instance, when I was deciding to go from CSA Group to Intertech, there were a number of roles. Some were conventional marketing, and then there was a digital marketing role. At the time, the year was 2006. Digital marketing was in its complete infancy. It was not even a phrase. So, but I took the risk to step into it from previously market research role. And frankly, this is career advice for everybody as well. I've been very intentional in making sure that I learned every single part of marketing, because if you aim for leadership down the line, you have to understand how those organizations work. So taking this risk was an immense impetus for the growth in my career, because with Wolfhard Hauser's legendary visionary leadership, Intertech, way ahead of the curve, had decided to go all digital in marketing before it was even a thing in companies. And it was so ahead of the curve, it sent us to classes, it educated us. It was a phenomenal experience. And then my first role was within the electrical division. It was a global role, but just divisional. And then I took an insane risk within Intertech when I was offered a position for another cross-divisional global role. But part of that role was to work with launching a brand new website that would bring all the legacy divisional sites together into one. It was an insanely complex project that had failed a couple of times. And in stepping into that role, I would have to kill what I was working on, among them a $12 million revenue producing website. It was a huge risk. And most everybody thought the project would not succeed. Well, we put an amazing team together and the project did succeed. So taking that risk was a very rewarding career and business experience. But the risk was I also had to kill the projects that I had developed myself to do something better. So that website that was generating 12 million in revenue, think of the risk that was being taken, started delivering 4x as many leads in the new environment. So completely justified and very rewarding risk.
A $12 million website, that's fantastic. So on the recruitment side then, I mean, what's your approach towards building and managing high performance teams?
Well, it starts with expectations. You have to set the bar high and expect nothing but the best. And then, of course, you have to be very intentional about your goals and objectives, and above all, about the people that you're recruiting onto that team. Because you cannot have a team with people who are not driven and intent on being high performance. At the same time, you have to take a number of steps to ensure that this team functions like a team rather than a bunch of independent individual contributors, so that 2 + 2 equals more like an 8 than a 4, right? Because there is power to collectively coming together and creating that infectious energy. You also have to understand the strengths of your team members, because you could have people who in a certain role would do a great job. I'm a huge believer of Gallup strengths, and I'm lucky that now I'm also a Gallup strengths coach. So if you understand where the strengths of your team lie, you can then maximize them, because we can all bring out the best in people or not. So that goes a long way. And then you have to be very intentional. It's not just like because I said so. You have to build buy-in. They have to understand the why behind what they're doing. They have to be engaged. They have to be measured on measured on outcomes. They have to know how they're being measured and what is being measured. And there have to be consistent check-ins, right? Most leaders of people, managers of people do not do the check-ins as well as they should. It has to be an in-the-moment, agile conversation. In effect, that's how we've been practicing agile marketing for a long time. It yields different results and outcomes than the kind of more old-fashioned waterfall type approaches.
So you're totally people first then, in terms of building of the teams, and outside the targets and performance, it's about where they fit, where their personalities work with other members, and their ambitions, their soft skills, their drives, and all that stuff. That for you seems to be all of it.
Yeah, and you have to recruit the right people into the right spots, right? Right people, right seats. Otherwise, you're not going. Some people may be great in another role, not on that team. Some people may need to approach some things differently. You have to understand also what motivates people. Because some people are sometimes motivated differently. You have to understand, I call it what makes a person tick, right? What really gets their energy going. So if you understand that, then you also cater to that. And the other thing is you have to value the people and appreciate and tell them how much, what they're doing makes a difference. If they can have a connection to purpose, that's another important thing. If they're purpose driven, they're going to have a very different outcome than if they're there just for the salary and a 9 to 5.
It's different level of energy. I sort of call it that clean energy stuff, instead of that like a praise not punishment environment almost, and they're really tapping into internal motivations. It's a different skills led level for management. It's harder to master that, but in terms of your output with your team's performance, it can be on another level.
They have to be inspired. They have to see the greater purpose. They have to be after a big vision. There has to be this sense of accomplishment. You can govern with fear, but that will have only short-term outcomes. That's not going to drive the inspiration of people. You're not going to have this consistently high-performing team. And what's amazing when you have a high-performing team, they keep everybody else accountable as well themselves. So they will
100%.
drive that accountability. They themselves keep raising the bar. It's not a one and done or that you have arrived. And also to have a high performing team, it's not this like, oh, we arrive at this destination. It's the continuous journey that matters.
Fantastic. Amazing. So moving over to, I guess, the commercial side, the client side, what's your strategy for developing and maintaining strong relationships with key customers or clients?
I love this part of the role. First of all, in marketing, and in also my current C-suite role at Mercury, if you do not understand your client, the voice of the customer, and I'm talking, sometimes it's the voice will not come through a survey, will not come through the regular day-to-day, but it's in the human interaction, understanding their true needs, anticipating their needs, really hearing them out, then you're not doing your job. Like marketing cannot just function in isolation. So you have to really understand where the industry is going, where your clients' needs are evolving, how they're approaching things, what's in it for them, like what will benefit them and what will make their lives easier or more effective. If a lot of the marketing to this day, and that completely puzzles me, is this like me, self-focus, we do this.
Yeah.
Well, frankly, nobody cares. People care how you can help them, what's in it for them, and that makes a difference. So changing that tone, being more benefits oriented and really hearing them. And frankly, meeting clients is one of the most rewarding aspects of my role back then and now as well. I just absolutely really love it and revel it. And those relationships go a long way.
Can't agree more. So in regards to technology, how do you think technology is optimizing sales processes, and how are you leveraging it currently or previously within different positions?
Well, where marketing is concerned, and especially its tight collaboration with sales, the marketing tech stack these days is the most expensive tech investment of most organizations. And it's becoming increasingly ever more complex, and actually being able to drive simplicity, having a sense of priorities, what you're going to focus on, what you're not going to focus on. Because let's face it, there's also a lot of wasted dollars that go into the tech stack where the power of this tech stack is not fully utilized. Like, and I talk about it, usually people talk about it like peeling an onion, and I think about it more as building an onion, so building layers. You may need to leverage something in your tech stack this year, something next year, and then the same goes to collaboration with sales, right? You have to be on the same page. You have to make sure that the CRM, for instance, is continuously updated because that's, and unfortunately, a lot of sales team, I don't care what industry they're in. They don't do a phenomenal job. So, and usually there is an adage I go by: if it's not in the CRM, it does not exist.
100%.
That makes a difference. Being able to engage with the inbound leads, because let's face it, the only leads that truly convert are the inbound leads. Everything else is just an opportunity, remote or warm or whatever, but they're not going to convert as readily as the inbound leads. But then collaborating with sales to engage with the inbound leads as soon as possible makes a world of difference. So those best practices have to be utilized. It starts with the basics, like the CRM, and then email marketing is increasingly I mean, it's been around for a long time, but how to do it right still matters and makes a world of difference. And then now there is social media, the engagement, the voice, the brand of people. So there is, it's a constantly evolving process. And we also have to talk about AI these days.
I was going to say some of the stuff as well there's no ROI in it short term, your branding, etc. This, these are long-term, mid-term plays. So I'd imagine actually when you're justifying certain tech platforms or things price-wise, the P&L leaders are so day-to-day focused. It's all, I guess you're trying to push back on stakeholders almost to say that the mid, the long-term invest, be consistent, etc. And it'll play out, sort of thing.
Exactly. And it's also how something is positioned also in social media. You and I talked earlier before the start of the recording that we share about 500 common connections on
Yeah.
LinkedIn, which is phenomenal, right? So
It
we
is.
swim
Yeah.
in absolutely in the same pond,
Yeah.
or the ocean in this case. But
Mhm.
having said that, how businesses come across, like every little interaction matters. Not everything is directly tied to revenue, but which is why I also think marketing and sales have to think of the metric of the cumulative contribution of marketing. Right? If you take marketing out of the equation, if the persona of the company, if the brand of the company is not amplified, I mean, what is brand ultimately? It's what people think of us when we're not in the room and they'll say about us. It's the mental shortcuts that a brand creates, right? And it also creates trust. There are brands that we keep going back to because it's just mentally easy. That's the power of the brand. And then others that we'll shy away from right away. That makes a world of difference.
Fantastic. So, what are the current market trends and opportunities within the TIC industry?
Oh, there are so many, and it's an exciting time. I'd venture for the tech industry. It's come a long way since monopolies have broken down and opened up. And I think the tech companies, the global players, have done a pretty good job of raising their clients' awareness that they can, for instance, use the ETL mark in the United States versus only UL, or that the UL mark will work in Canada versus only CSA. So huge progress there. But now with the tech industry stands to gain a lot from building efficiencies of scale, introducing things like dynamic pricing, e-commerce. And I fully realize the complexities behind some of those propositions, right? For instance, for e-commerce, you need repeatability. And there are ways now, especially with AI and machine learning, to calculate averages and to set it up so you can transact more quickly, more rapidly. Dynamic pricing is long overdue because there are the rush fees, but everybody's now using dynamic pricing and people are used to it. If you want something done really fast, that will make a world of difference, and it really will help the industry keep evolving. So there is a video capability. Some allow for people to see live tests. There's so much opportunity with technology for the tech industry that to me, it's an insanely exciting time for them.
And the industry's got more competitive, right? I think we were talking before that each region used to have a monopoly sort of structure, and
it's extremely competitive. I mean, it used to be that CSA was the dominant player in Canada. I would venture it probably is no longer the dominant player in Canada, right? Because some very competitive players have stepped in and moved in. UL used to be a monopoly in the United States. It's definitely no longer the monopoly in the United States. And in fact, when I worked at Intertech, we would do a huge celebration and we found a consumer product with the ETL mark. And then last year, my place was being renovated, like full renovation, kitchens, bathrooms, and we had to buy a lot of electrical products. And guess what? Every single one of them had the ETL mark. And of course, I inwardly cheered every single time. And to have had a little contribution to go towards that, to have been at the part of the journey where those were very unique instances is insanely rewarding. So the opportunities are immense. It's more competitive. And the other thing is, when it was monopolies, clients did not have a choice. So they did not have to be fast. They did not have to be responsive. All of that is changing.
Exactly right. If there's competitiveness creates innovation because you have to be competitive, and I think there's quite a lot of disruption actually at the minute with private equity, VC, just different structured companies that are coming in with different employer value propositions, etc., that are making the the longer standing, more established companies really think and be competitive, which is from an industry perspective is got to be a positive thing.
And those forces have led to the ascendance of companies like Element that were not on the radar, even 12, 15 years ago at all.
Exactly.
And the mergers, acquisitions, there is the body code to Exova to now being acquired by Element story. There are phenomenal stories of business transformation within the TIC industry. And it's fascinating to watch. I love, kind of looking at history of business innovation and how companies morph and evolve. And TIC is a prime example of that, on how companies reimagine themselves. So to me, it's a very innovative field.
Absolutely. So throwing it kind of back to you, how do you define success? And how has your perspective on success evolved throughout your personal and professional journey?
Interesting. I think success is something that most people probably seek in their lives. They just go about it through different means. And of course, people have very different definitions. Sometimes when we see successes of people, we never see their failures. But in essence, one of the best definitions of success is ability to recover from failure and keep on trying. Because not giving up. There's a book called The Age of Unreason by Charles Handy. And in there, he argues that for every huge success of successful people, we don't see the 9 failures that they had. But then they don't even get tied up in that or mired in it. They just keep forging forward. So, and then sometimes people think of overnight successes without seeing the blood, sweat, and tears and perseverance that went with that, right? So we're talking about the outward definitions of success. There are also definitions of success as building your family, having a loving network. So to me, success is very multifaceted. And again, it's a journey. It's not a destination. I think the minute that you deem yourself, oh, I'm super successful, it's like the beginning of the end. Inwardly, inwardly, I'm always kind of working with dissatisfaction, but one of my top Gallup strengths is achiever. So but you do not work from satisfaction because you're always trying to drive improvement. I'm a huge believer in Kaizen. Driving small incremental improvements, iterating, improving. And to me, those are all facets that make success happen. Success is a journey, so not a destination.
Completely agree. And I think that moves really nicely on to, you being able to potentially share some specific mindset or mental strategies that have helped you overcome some challenges and maintain a positive outlook.
Thank you. I think keeping perspective is really important. Having a sense of gratitude and understanding where things are, channeling other people's views and perspectives also, right? What does the world look like from where the shoes that they're wearing and the miles that they're walking? Could you walk a mile in their shoes? And Bill Hagee always says, where you stand, where you sit is where you stand. So that's also people's positions, like your role very often will define your outlook. So having perspective and understanding the relativity of it all is extremely important to have the right mindset. It's also about open mindset, kind of toggles with your previous question about success. It's about keeping on trying. You can't say, oh, I have arrived. You have to keep on improving. And that's extremely important. In fact, when you look at policies, my PhD is in law and policy. And in policymaking, the biggest thing that I took out of that was that major failures happen when people are faced with new facts and they discount them because they had already made up their mind. So that mindset issue is huge. Not discounting certain things, keeping an open mind, evolving. All of that makes a difference on our outcomes and you can also change perspectives, how you look at things. So It's a continuous state of flux and being comfortable with it. I think some of the most successful people thinking of success are those that deal with ambiguity really well, because ambiguity is all around us, right? So and then the ultimate thing is being curious, ask questions, keep on learning. Like if you think, oh, I know everything, and you stop learning, that's the beginning of the end. It's really important to be inquisitive, be curious, and keep on figuring things out.
It's funny because people spend so much time working their hardest at their professional job and forget that the thing that allows them to do their professional job is their mind, and that mind isn't even really a thought. They don't work at it like a job, but really, a lot of the best operators treat that mind, body, soul thing as an equivalent job to their job. They work as hard at that as they do at the job because it's all intertwined. But some people will miss that and don't put the right amount of proactivity into that development and that continuous improvement, as you've mentioned.
I hugely believe in taking a holistic approach, right? I've never worked a job that's been like 9 to 5. I mean, I think about the work all the time because there are huge responsibilities tied to that, especially in a C-suite role. So it's not as if I will walk out of the office and stop thinking about it. But I also keep my curiosity learning. Anybody who knows me, I love to travel. But it's time for me to shift perspective, refocus, look at things from a different perspective. And sometimes I find immensely important work solutions in immensely unrelated places. So all of that, like you have to take a holistic approach. All of that comes together. As I said, I've never been in a role where like my work ended at a certain hour. But that's what knowledge workers and leadership entails.
100%. Well, you're playing the infinite game, right? There's a finite game and there's an infinite. You're playing the infinite game. It's not. It isn't one thing. It's all intertwined, and it's that ecosystem, and you're playing that game clearly. So
very well put. Absolutely, Thomas.
Yeah. Fantastic. I mean, we've touched on it a little bit, but something that I believe a lot in as well is gratitude, and I'm just interested to know what it is in your life and how do you incorporate it into your sort of daily routine.
I cannot overstate the importance of gratitude, both for what's in our lives and for the people around us. We talked about high performance teams. Thanking them, appreciating what they did well goes a long way. Making them feel valued goes a long way. Similarly, when you talk about gratitude, having perspective in your own life and being grateful for all the blessings goes a long way. There's a lot of suffering out there in the world. I mean, you're in the UK, I'm in the US. We're immensely blessed just by geography of where we were located. So a lot of our problems may be very kind of manufactured problems if we take perspective and look at it. Not that they don't matter, but again, the approach, the mindset with which we approach them makes a world of difference. And people, we're hardwired. I think it's evolutionary to notice negative things more than the positive, right? Which is why in the media, in the news, the adage is if it bleeds, it leads. So that leads to a very negative outlook where people do not appreciate the positive things. Or when something is working really well, we're not likely to go and say, you know what, thank you so much. That's really well done. But we're way more likely to notice something negative that happened and comment on that and get short-circuited on that. That does not provide a framework to encourage the best in people and the best behavior. Set the bar high, bring people up to the highest, and like appreciate and move. That builds so much more lasting success. And and the other thing is be very selective. Like not all the people should be on that bus. Be honest about that because the culture may not fit. So some people have commented to me that sometimes maybe I think a lot, but to me it's really warranted because I absolutely do not take anything for granted. And seriously, sometimes looking at the world with a child's eyes, it's the escalators that work, that elevators that work. There is so much that's going right in our lives that we lose patience for, right? And we do not appreciate that. Hey, this is fabulous. This is happening.
It's that same thing again, though. I really think it takes proactive effort. I think, as you said, I think we are naturally wired to focus on negative things, and you have to proactively rewire your brain as if it's a circuit board that needs to learn to fire again to make that easier. The more you practice something, the easier those circuits are to fire. The less you practice it, the less easy they are. And as you said, naturally you'll lean one way. You've got to really work hard at leaning the other way, and it is a job. It's the same thing.
So you just made me think of something. That's why, first of all, a lot of people are told to keep gratitude journals, right? Gives perspective. Yeah. I remember I was in a business setting. So this person comes in and they're full of litany of complaints on a lot of things. You think the sky is falling, the sun will not rise and everything is terrible. Armageddon. And so to kind of reframe that, I asked this person, I said, what a lot of the things you're saying are absolutely legit. Can we step back? Can you tell me 3 positive things that are going on?
Yeah.
And when the person paused and thought about it and named those, then it like puts everything in perspective. Because you can drown in the sea of negativity.
Tell me about it.
Or you can bring some context to it and perspective. And reframe and think of it differently, and also problem solve. Complaining, by the way, has not helped anybody yet. Maybe venting is helpful, but it's action, right? If you really dislike something, take action about it. Don't just sit about it. And the same goes for high-performing teams. The high performance doesn't happen just on its own. It happens through a sense of ownership. Disney World is famous, the Disney organization, by their adage that if you see trash, you own that trash. That's why Disney World and all their properties are so clean. Because as soon as any of their, team members sees a piece of trash, they pick it up.
I love that.
It's ownership.
Totally. 100%. Very, very good. So, closing question. If you could turn back time and give your 21-year-old self advice, what would that be?
Wow, I would say, it's a good one. I would say, take perspective. Yep. Don't rush as much. Just things will work out. And really enjoy every single day. Because time is like the most valuable asset we all have. I mean, where's Steve Jobs today with all his billions, right? So making the most of every single day goes a long way, and it's at work, it's in your personal lives. Carpe diem and seize the opportunity. That's the other thing. And when opportunity presents itself, grab it. Very important.
Amazing. Thank you so much for coming on, Jasmine. It has been awesome sharing insights right across the board, from industry to personal to strategies. It's been a fantastic podcast. I really appreciate you coming on.
Thank you, Thomas. It's been an honor and privilege, and I think the world of you. So thanks a million.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jasmine. Take care. Bye-bye.